What's up, guys? Welcome back. Kelly with Droid Life, and it's time for a comparison. We've got the Droid Ultra here on the right, Moto X here on the left, and it's time to decide what's different, or at least show you what's different between the two. I know a lot of you are on Verizon with contracts expiring. You're looking at these new Motorola devices, since there's 4 of them that you're going to be able to choose from on Verizon. So we've got the Ultra in hand, in-house. We'll have the the Droid Max in a couple of days, hopefully, maybe the Mini down the road as well. But the big choice is probably going to be between Moto X, Ultra, and then Max. So we thought we'd start, since we've got it, with these two, and we'll kind of walk through specs, software, experience, design, and sort of let you guys decide which you're kind of leaning towards. All right. So in terms of specs, you're looking at almost identical specs. Okay. The only difference is, and I'll run through them all, but the only difference is you're going to see 5-inch 720p display on the Droid Ultra. So 720p AMOLED. RGB though, it's not pentile, so it's actually not going to be a bad display. You also have capacitive touch buttons on the bottom that are not part of the display. So you actually get a full 5-inch experience on the Droid Ultra. Okay, so that's one big difference. On the Moto X, you're looking at a 4.7-inch AMOLED, 720p, RGB, same tech, all that stuff. But there's a difference here because you have on-screen buttons, which I'll show you in a second. You have on-screen buttons, so it's just kind of a different experience there. Now, what I will say is with that on-screen panel down there, it actually sort of shrinks your display to about 4.5 or 4.4 inches, so diagonally, so you have space taken up by those. Again, with the Ultra, since you have no on-screen buttons, you get the full 5 inches of viewing experience. Okay, so that, and I'll show you when we get into the actual OS. There could be some differences there, and there could be some, I don't want to call it a downgrade, but you could see some pixels if you're really that picky. I'll show you when I get into the settings that I'm not the biggest fan so far of the blown up 720 on a 5-inch display. I like it much better on the Moto X. But anyways, that's one of the differences. Display's different. And then you also have obviously a completely different design. So with the Droid, the Ultra, I would almost argue that this is, you can see I've got fingerprints showing up. Now granted, I just wiped this device down before I started this video, and I've already got some fingerprints there. So the Droid, I would argue, is Verizon's vision of what a phone should be. Now I know it's made by Motorola, and Motorola designed it, but when you look at the Moto X, and this is essentially what Motorola considers their flagship. This is what Motorola wants a phone to look like. The Droid is still, and this is Verizon's sort of thing. They have the exclusive on Droid, and Motorola now is exclusively making all of their Droid phones. But you've got sort of it's not really Kevlar, but you've got the textured look in the back, but it's this really glossy plastic around it. It's got Droid branding, it's got edges and angles, and it looks like a Droid phone, like we've seen them all look in the past. Okay, so this is like Verizon's vision of what a Droid phone should be. And then Motorola, this is their vision of just what an Android smartphone should be. So there's definitely some design differences. If we look at thickness, if you didn't watch our unboxing video, you'll want to see this. The Moto X is, I don't want to call it significantly thicker, but it's definitely thicker than the Droid Ultra. Okay, you're looking at 7.18 millimeter thickness on the Droid Ultra, which is insanely thin. And you actually have 10.4 millimeters of thickness on the X, and that's because it sort of has a little hump there in the middle. So I wouldn't call the Moto X thick, but it's definitely thicker. And I will say that it's actually a little bit thicker than the HTC One, if you can believe that. HTC One's a pretty big device. Doesn't feel bad in hand, it's just a little bit thicker, it's not incredibly thin. But the rest of the specs, there's not a lot of differences. Okay, they're both running a 1.7 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 Pro processor with Motorola's X8 mobile computing in there to sort of make it more efficient and to allow for some of their other features to work. Like they have these 2 sort of companion cores, if you will, contextual cores that let you do active display, which lets only pieces of the display fire up, which you've probably seen show up a little bit in there. There you go. And then also touchless control, so it's always listening for you to say a certain command, which we'll get to in just a second. So it's got that. They each have 2 gig of RAM. They each have 16 gigabytes of internal storage. No SD card slots for expansion. Now the Max will have 32 gigabytes of internal storage, but no SD card slot there either. So you're a little bit limited, I guess. Both have 10 megapixel clear pixel cameras on the back. So exact same sensor in there. I'm not the hugest fan of the camera in the Moto X, so I'm assuming I'm not going to be the hugest fan of the one in the Ultra as well, but we'll review that and get there. 2200 milliamp hour battery in the Moto X, 2130 milliamp hour battery in the Droid Ultra. So a little bit smaller actually in the Ultra, but again, it's crazy thin. So, you know, they had to probably shrink it down a bit. Motorola does claim that the Ultra gets 28 hours of usage while the Moto X only gets 24. So I'm not sure how that came to be. You have a smaller display on the Moto X and a bigger battery, but Motorola is claiming that the Ultra actually gets, or at least Verizon's claiming the Ultra gets slightly better battery life. But either way, still pretty good battery life. LTE, NFC, no wireless charging in either. Now the Max and the Mini are actually both gonna have wireless charging, but the Ultra doesn't, probably to keep it ultra thin. You're looking at 137 grams here in weight with the Ultra, 130 with the Moto X. So they're both pretty light. In hand, I can't really tell a difference. Actually, the Moto X, for some reason, maybe it's because it's so compact, feels a little bit heavier, and the weight on the Ultra is spread out that it feels a little bit lighter, but technically it is a little bit heavier. So that's really what you're looking at in terms of hardware. All right, so price, they're each $199 on 2-year contract, and I believe $599 for the Ultra off, and we're not fully sure what the Moto X is, although it could be around $575, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was $599 as well. All right, so that's hardware, right? The only differences are size. So here they are next to each other. It's remarkably different here. So you've got a giant phone and a pretty compact phone. All right, so that's a big difference. 5-inch display, 4.7-inch display. So that's changed. Obviously, the design's completely different. You've got the glossy plastic on the Ultra, soft touch plastic on the Moto X. Now, the Ultra is also going to come in white and red. So you're going to have a couple of different options. Moto X eventually will be able to fully customize once Verizon gets access to Moto Maker. All right, so let's talk about software. Okay, in terms of software, there's really no difference. Okay, there's one, maybe two things with the Ultra that you might want on the Moto X, but they're not game changers by any means. The big things are touchless control, active display, and quick capture camera, which is what Motorola is trying to sell the Moto X on. Those are all included in the in the Droid Ultra. So if I pick this up, you'll see active display is working. I have my shortcuts, my quick notifications. I can unlock into Hangouts. See, I've got a test message there that shows a preview. If I had other Gmail messages, they would show up down here, or I can just swipe down and unlock right into my phone. So active display with the clock, it's there, just like it was. Now, this is my favorite feature of the Moto X. It's also included in the Droid Ultra. So it should do the same if you have your phone face down or in your pocket and you flip it over, you should have your clock, and if you have notifications, it should be there every single time. So again, my favorite feature from the Moto X is in the Droid Ultra. All right, so the other thing then is touchless control, right? This is where you don't have to touch your phone. It can be in a locked state like this, and you can talk to it, and it'll do things and use Google Now and all that stuff. I've actually set both of them up, so we'll see how they work. I have the Moto X on Wi-Fi and this one on LTE, so there's kind of a disadvantage there, but I'll show you they both work just fine. So I think the question we do in every video, which has kind of become a joke, is how old is LeBron James? So let's see how it does with that. Okay, Google Now, how old is LeBron James?
Calling Providence Credit Union at work.
How did it call Providence? There is the funny thing is that they both thought I said Providence, not how old is LeBron James. That's insane. Let's try that one more time. How about? So let's go ahead and lock you, Moto X. Okay, Google Now, how old is LeBron James?
LeBron James is 28 years old.
That worked much nicer. So we didn't mean to call Providence. I'm sorry, Providence, if I'm still calling you. LeBron James is 28 years old, and again, my Moto X is on Wi-Fi, so it got there a little bit faster. But you can do all of that, the touchless display. You can ask it for navigation, directions, all of that stuff. Both phones, it works identically. Okay, so that's one of the big things. The other one then was quick capture camera, and quick capture. I always struggle saying that. Is the tech where you can do a twisting motion with the phone, it'll launch the camera. So it's supposed to be the quickest way to launch a camera. It's also included in the Ultra. Let's see if I can get it to work. You just do a couple of quick twists and it fires up the camera. And let's snap a picture of the Moto X. So it's touch anywhere and it'll take a picture. You don't have to fumble around for the shutter button. So that feature again, which is popular or going to be promoted by Motorola and the Moto X, it's included in the Droid Ultra. So you've still got all of that stuff going on. All right, so in terms of other software differences, you'll see right here you've got this 3-circle clock, which became sort of famous with Motorola last year when they introduced the Atrix HD and the Razr HD. I think we just called it the 3-ring or 3-circle clock. It's back, but now Motorola is calling it, or Verizon's calling it, the command center. So it actually starts out looking just like that as one circle. There's a little plus button which expands it and shows you weather and your battery status. And you can flip these over, and there's a settings button to get you into settings. You can flip this one if you have multiple cities, and you can just toggle through city after city. And then on this clock side, you actually, so you used to be able to flip this over and it would go from digital to analog clock. Now if you flip it, it goes to Droid Zap, which I'm going to show you guys in a different video. It's a photo sharing feature that's actually on the Droids, not the Moto X. And then there's a mirrorless display button, and both devices do mirrorless display. So this is another feature that's on there that's not going to be on your Moto X. So Droid Zap and this 3-ring thing are two things that you're going to see. Other than that, not really a lot of difference. So if we go and pull down notifications, see notifications look the same. I did leave some from the initial setup. You'll see Moto Care tips are there, protect your phones there. So you can find lost phones, and then Moto Connect is on there. That's a Chrome extension you can use to manage text and notifications that come in through your browser rather than just through your phone. So that's on there. But if we go into settings, you'll see you've got same quick toggles that you have on the Moto X and stock Android 4.2.2. And if we go into settings and scroll down, you'll see we're running Android 4.2.2. So again, not really a lot of difference. Although that's interesting. I never noticed it actually says system information, Motorola X8 mobile computing system. Interesting. There's the Droid Ultra. If you really want to see it, here it is running Jelly Bean. It's not 4.3, it's 4.2.2, which is almost the newest version, though you're not going to notice that big of a difference between this and 4.3. One thing I did want to show you though is with capacitive touch buttons, you're probably wondering how do you get into Google now? So you can't just, I thought I just said that, you know, the key phrase there. You can't just swipe up. So if you look, I'm swiping. But if you do like this half-second pause on the home button, then you can swipe up. So if I touch hold just for a second, you'll see then I get the ring. So all it is a quick touch, and then you get it. So you can actually still get into Google Now from anywhere, almost as easy as you can on a phone with on-screen buttons. Just a quick press and then swipe up. And it really is about a half second, and then swipe and you're there. So that's really neat. If we go back into the camera though, I will show you that it's the same UI with your settings here as on the Moto X. And if I actually want a Droid Zap, I just do this 2-finger swipe and it says getting ready. And it makes this really cheesy noise. And I'll show you how that works in another video. We'll do some other software tours. So that photo is actually hovering out there waiting for my Moto X to receive it. But that's really gonna be your differences, okay? We can go to the app drawer. You'll see there's some bloatware, like the Amazon suite of apps is loaded on there. Caller ID, you'll get to all the Verizon apps and Budini. So there's a few more bloatware than you have on the Moto X. But otherwise, I haven't installed anything else, so this is what comes on here stock. But again, it's essentially stock Android. You know, they've kind of given you a whole bunch of preset widgets and stuff, but it really is stock Android with just some stuff. I don't even want to call it Motorola skin. It's stock Android with some feature or software additions by Motorola, which is kind of nice. We like stock Android, so hopefully we get, you know, updates really fast and stuff like that. Motorola has been really good lately. So this is just kind of a difference between the two. This is a comparison Droid Ultra and Moto X. Again, subtle differences, some big differences, software not really different, camera's the same, display's gonna be a little bit different. Actually, I said I would show you this, but if you go into settings, now you're not gonna be able to see this on camera, but I notice that it just doesn't look quite as sharp with text in this setting. Now I'll go into like some web pages and I'll look at that later and really decide on this, but this just doesn't look as sharp to me as the Moto X does because it's, again, a bigger display and it's only 720p. So I don't think it looks quite as sharp. You might not notice it. It's not pentile, so you're not gonna get all that weird blurring. It's RGB, so it still should be nice. And like I said, I'll look at text and stuff later to really decide here. But so far, you know, it's not a bad phone. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the glossy fingerprint magnet on the back there, but it feels nice in hand. It's a little wide because it's a 5-inch display, so it's a little wide, but overall, not a bad phone. And again, it has all of the features that are in the Moto X. It just has a bigger display. So it's a little bit different design and look, but the experience is almost identical. So anyways, we'll have a full review Wow, that's a lot of fingerprints. We'll have a full review. We've got some other stuff coming. We'll compare it to some other phones if you want to see that, test battery life, and ultimately help you decide if you're going to go with one of these new Motorola phones or not on Verizon. So anyways, Droid Life. Peace.